So whatever the scenario is, this man happens to be in the synagogue, and it just happens to be a synagogue that Jesus is going into. I wonder if that's coincidental. I wonder if in the years preceding, before he ever started his ministry, if he did not know on this particular date, this particular city, at this particular synagogue, this particular man with this particular disease would not be sitting there. Father, I came to do the work you gave me to do. Oh, then son, would you mind going over there? There's a crippled guy I'd like for you to meet. Sure, on my way. So the stage is set, and it's been set. And when they were departed thence, he went into a synagogue, and behold, there was a man which had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day? This asked that they might accuse him, we read in the Fourth thing. And he said unto them, let me ask you, you ever notice whenever Jesus gets questions, he always asks a question in return? He always answers a question with a question. And so he gives this story right here to these men. And it's a good one. What man shall there be among you, Mr. Pharisees, if you have a sheep? Is it as valuable as a man? No. But let's suppose now you have a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath day. Will he not lay hold of it and lift it out? Well, see, I got this sheep. I'm a shepherd. That's how I make my money. And my sheep falls into a big old deep hole. Well, it's a Sabbath day. I can't do any work. I can't lift it out. I'll have to leave it in there. It'll die overnight, sure. And it may even have a broken leg in the bottom of that thing. But I'm going to lose that sheep. That's okay. It's a Sabbath day. Lord, blessed be your holy name for killing that sheep of mine. Thank you for it. Okay? No. You being a compassionate person, because you don't want to see that sheep down there suffering. You're going to go down there and you're going to get that sheep out. That would be the right thing to do. The right thing to do is save a suffering animal. Right? They even sing songs about it nowadays. Real sad. I mean, those animal commercials, when they want you to go out and adopt, I mean, boy, it'll make you cry. You'd be right all the way to the pet store to go buy that animal, right? So Jesus sort of says the same thing to this guy. If you had a sheep and it fell into a pit, what would be wrong with you climbing down in there and getting it out on the Sabbath? Well, there's nothing, because that's how I make my living. That's what you came to do, right? To raise sheep. That's pretty good of you, he says. All right. How much more then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore, if it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath, then he said unto them, now they got him to agree. Is it, okay, maybe not to heal. Notice he didn't use the word heal, that sheep. He got them to agree it's okay to do a good thing. It's a good thing to say that. That's a good thing. All right. Is it okay to do good on the Sabbath? Oh, sure, you can do good. All right. Is it good to heal that man? See? He got it with their own words. When they said it was okay to do good, then it's, okay, if it's okay to do good to a sheep, isn't it better to do good for a man? Because after all, would you not consider that a man is better than a sheep? Were sheep made in the image of God? No. Men were. So, with their own words, he catches them and he delivers them to a point. How much is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore, if it's lawful to do well on the Sabbath day, he said to the man, stretch forth. Now, here's the work. Jesus isn't waving his arms or nothing. He's just talking. You're allowed to talk on the Sabbath or I'd be arrested. He's allowed walking. That's all he's doing. He just says to this man, stretch forth your hand. The man is going to commit the crime because he's going to stretch forth his hand, which constitutes work in their mind. So, if they don't get Jesus, they'll get this poor guy. Stretch forth thine hand, and he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole, like as the others. Then the Pharisees went out, and they held a council against them, how they might destroy them. Second time this idea is used. John chapter 5, how they might kill him. Matthew, how they might destroy him. Bring him to a destruction. Wow. For what? For saying to this poor guy, stretch forth your hand. Now, if some guy was able to do that kind of miracle, wouldn't you want to keep him around? See, how blind must they be? Because let's suppose he wasn't even claiming to be God for a minute. Let's just suppose he was a guy like you and me who could do this. Remember Jairus, who was a ruler of the synagogue? And when he heard about Jesus, he said, hey, I got a daughter who could benefit by this guy. So they brought him to his house. Wouldn't it have been better for these guys to say, hey, you know what? I know a sick guy. Or I got somebody in my family who's sick. I know somebody who could use a guy like this. We need more people like this in our town, in our countries, in our cities. I mean, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we had a healer somewhere in our town that we could bring people to it? We could see them get healed. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? Let's find a way to kill them. It doesn't even make any logical sense at all. Here's a guy who could do miracles. And what do they want to do with him? Kill him. Why? Why would they want to? Interfering with them. See, if you're a holy guy and people are calling you holy, how long before they start asking you to do what this guy can do? Right? You're up a creek pretty soon. If all them faith healer guys came to town and healed everybody, guess what folks are going to want me to do pretty soon? They want me to do, and when I can, ride about town on a rail. I better begin to call me some sick folks up real quick and heal them. You see, you can't let a guy like this get out into the community because he'll ruin it for everybody else. Especially a guy who says he knows God personally. And who can demonstrate it by the miracles he's doing. Now, all of a sudden, people are going to expect that I know God personally. You know how much time it takes to know God personally? This man gets up early while it is still dark outside and goes off and prays. You think that Pharisee wants to get up before noon? I don't think so. You think that Pharisee wants to give up all of his possessions and be like this guy? I don't think so. Who goes around doing good. If this guy becomes the norm, religion is doomed. And they know it. They know it. Because it just shows, you know, the gospel is such a wonderful, wonderful thing. I remember when I first heard it myself, and I first thought, this is the greatest news I've ever heard. Everybody's going to want to know this. I mean, when I tell people about Jesus, they're going to jump up and say, yeah, I wish I'd heard this earlier. That was my honest understanding. This was the greatest news ever. And so when I run and knock on people's doors and knock on people's windows and say, hey, did you hear about Jesus? Bam. What? Nobody wasn't excited about it as I makes no sense. Nor does it make any sense why people would deny it. Makes absolutely no sense to me why anybody, when they hear the gospel, would not want to have it. I am dumbfounded every time somebody says no to me. Absolutely. But I gotta start the process. How could you turn this down? How could you not want it? Well, I gotta change. No, he'll change you. I didn't change. God changed me. I didn't sit down and say, well, I guess now I'll have to start to straighten out my life. That thought never occurred to me. I was just doing what I used to do, and all of a sudden I realized I don't want to do this one anymore. I was talking the way I was talking, all of a sudden I realized I shouldn't talk like that anymore. I never sat down and consciously wrote out a list of what things I should change. It's just my life changed. The people in it changed. All those folks I used to know, all of a sudden I didn't see them anymore. And people that were strangers to me, all of a sudden those are the folks that I knew. Why? Because as Christian people, we find out that we don't have a lot of commonality with people who aren't Christians. What do you talk to about? You know, when I go to work and I'm talking to the guys at work, we can talk about work. But I don't associate with them outside of work, because outside of work we got nothing to talk about. To a large degree, my own family, when I became a Christian, didn't hang around with me. Why? Because what would we talk about? I didn't want to talk about the things that they found interesting. I didn't go anywhere. I'm still there. They just didn't come around anymore. Why? Because those of us who live for Christ have nothing in common with those who do not. And it's that lack of commonality that keeps us together. You know, family comes by and they sit down and visit, and the conversation's over in about 3 minutes. How you been? Oh, I've been fine. Kids okay? Yeah, kids are okay. That's it. You get together with a Christian, though, you can talk about the church, your church, my church. Talk about what they're doing for the Lord. Talk about what God's been doing in our life, what God's been doing in our church, the things that we have seen God do, the things we have allowed God to do. We can talk about those, but people who don't live this life have no interest. You and I, we sit there and we talk about, wow, you wouldn't believe what the Lord's just doing with the new pews. And it's like, all you needed was more money. But we ain't got more money. We needed God to step in and do something. But do they care? No. We do. So all of a sudden you find yourself hanging around more with folks in church than you do with folks in your family. Because you've got something in common. These people who were healed by Jesus had more in common than those guys in the back. They knew books, but this man knew that man. And that's the difference. The relationship. How well do you know that guy there? Not how well do you know about him. Not just the historic. See, that's the thing. We're studying here the life of Jesus Christ so we can know the history of Christ only as a motivation for us to get to know the Christ. Because I don't want you to know about him. What does that do in your life? Nothing. When the tough times come, my history doesn't save me. When the tough times come, knowing him, trusting him, depending on him, knowing he's going to be there regardless of what it looks like around me. Knowing him is what makes the difference. And so as we come together on this first day of this new year in the life of Jesus, this year of opposition. And we see to a large degree he really caused it. He could have avoided the whole thing. He could have gone to the guy at the pool, for example, and he could have healed him and then say, listen, it's Saturday. Leave the bed. No one's going to steal it. Come back and pick it up Monday. Go on home. It'll still be there. As God, could he not make sure that that mat was protected and nobody stole it? He could have done that just as easy as he could heal the guy. Look at the confrontation he could have avoided just by saying to the guy, leave the... Why did he have to say, pick up your mat and carry it? Was it enough that the guy had the faith to get up onto his feet? Why did he throw that phrase in there? Oh, and by the way, just take your mat with you. He does that, and it's always the carrying of the mat. What got this guy in trouble? Why are you carrying that mat through the temple? Don't you know that's illegal? Walking through the temple, perfectly fine. The guy was healed. You saw all of his friends who recognized him and said, wow, we know you. You were that guy sitting over there for 30 years. What happened? He was getting a lot of notoriety, but no trouble. Hey, pick up the mat. And what did the guy say? The guy who healed me said, pick up my mat. So, hey, if he's healing me, I'm doing what he's telling me to do. Because maybe if I didn't pick up this mat, maybe I would get unhealed. He doesn't know. And then why didn't Jesus say to his disciples, listen, I know you guys are hungry. Here, have some bread. Oh, and by the way, I got some fishes in this pocket. Could he have done? He's going to do it on the mountain. He's going to feed 5,000. He could have avoided that argument on the side of the road by reaching into his pocket and giving them a fish, and reaching into the other one and giving them all the bread they baked rolls. He could have given them hot baked rolls. No, he's letting them rub those ears of corn in their hands. And he just so does that in the eye shot of those Pharisees. And he could have prevented the whole thing. Why didn't he?